Indonesiaku tercinta, persatuan dan kesatuan negara Republik Indonesia. Undang-Undang Dasar 45, Pancasila dasar negara. Seluruh rakyat wajib bela negara, songsong hari esok kamu sejahtera. Seluruh bangsa Indonesia hadapi tantangan dan cobaan. Raihlah cita-cita yang mulia, Indonesia makmur dan sentosa. Walau berbagai suku dan agama, ragam budaya serta golongan, satu untuk semua, semua untuk satu. Jaya Indonesiaku tercinta, persatuan dan kesatuan negara Republik Indonesia. Undang-Undang Dasar 45, Pancasila dasar negara. Seluruh rakyat wajib bela negara, songsong hari esok kamu sejahtera.
We will watch Faculty of Mineral Technology profile.
How wonderful our majestic motherland is! With the natural wealth lies in scenery as far as the eye can see, store up all potential and high quality energy. A great challenge to explore and process our own motherland for our nation and state to flourish. This is where I am formed. Become a superior, reliable, and professional development pioneer in various fields. As a great duty in presenting new energy to continue moving on to grow. This is the place where the tradition of science becomes strong, which brings creativity and innovation to not stop. An institution of education and research of science, geotechnology with national insights with international quality. I am aware for the development of human resources as a key to Indonesia's economic future. Human resources that are advanced, professional, believe in God Almighty, responsible, disciplined, creative, have a financial spirit, national insight, and caring for community welfare. I found what I was looking for here, in an environment that continues to beat the best heart of this country to achieve dreams and hopes. With the best educators to dedicate their knowledge to print the future generation of the nation. Inspiration, motivation, and the determination to be the spirit in every movement. The spirit is not just to grow, but also to achieve. Achievement is my promise. Promises that I wish to make it happen in variety of superior works that gave us proud moment when looking high to our beloved alma mater. When the challenge is ranging the area, when the dangers and risks are ready in front of us, I dedicate my whole soul for a professionalism for the future. Being in a dynamic environment with a strong-ended academic tradition, making me more confident in taking on every challenge. Empiric experience becoming my strength to face the real industrial world.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the Faculty of Mineral Technology, Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta. Faculty of Mineral Technology is one of the oldest faculty at Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta, managing geology, geophysics, geomatic, mining, petroleum, metallurgy, and environment engineering study programs. This faculty focus on the education of earth science, energy and mineral resources, both exploration and extraction, without neglecting natural conservation and environment aspects. Our faculty vision is to be higher education and research institution in the field of earth science, resilience of energy and mineral resources with environmental and global insight based on the spirit of national defense. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
A world where I put my dignity of all my dream to contribute to the growth of the nation. This is where I am supposed to be. Home for the best private vocational school of Indonesia for the developing science and technology for the progress of the nation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning for everyone. Selamat pagi semuanya. Welcome to Yogyakarta. Welcome to UPN Veteran Yogyakarta and welcome to the 4th International Conference on Earth Science, Mineral and Energy, Icemine 2021. Some the fourth Icemine this year is stay safe with geoscience and challenges the mineral and energy exploration, extraction and conservation to improve economic growth. Like the third Icemine 2020, this conference also still held in virtually, considering the condition in this COVID-19 pandemic. In this opportunity, I would like to thank many peoples. First, the Honorable Rector UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Bapak Dr. Muhammad Erhas Effendi, and all of the Vice Rector UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. Selamat pagi, Bapak-Bapak. The Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Earth and Energy Technology, Trisakti University, Bapak Dr. Burhanuddin Nur. Thank you Pak Burhan untuk supportnya di acara conference ini. The Honorable all keynote and invited speakers. First, Professor Ron Harris from Brigham Young University, USA. Prof. Timotheus Pasang from Oregon Institute of Technology, USA. Dr. C. Prastyadi from UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Professor Toshifumi Igarashi from Hokkaido University, Japan. Dr. Carlito Tabelin from University of New South Wales, Sydney, Australia. Dr. Omer Faruk Ugurlu from Istanbul University, Turkey. Thank you very much. Terima kasih Bapak-Bapak semuanya. Icemine 2021 participants are more 100 presenters from many countries and many universities. They are from Indonesia, Philippines, USA, Australia, Japan, and Turkey. Thank you for all the participants and presenters. Hopefully this conference can be able to increase research collaborations to share knowledge and in the field of earth science, mineral, energy, and environmental impact management, as well as improve economic growth as stated in the theme conference. Those all my speech. Last, I would like to thank to the chair of conference and all of the committee, and hopefully this conference is going to run successfully. Amin. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sutarto. Next, welcome speech by Chairman Icemine 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Heri Rizwandi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Peace be upon us all. May we be in good health. In this chance, as the head of the committee, who I respect the Rector of UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Dr. Muhammad Erhas Effendi, the Dean of the Faculty of Mineral Technology, UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Dr. Sutarto, who I respect the keynote and invited speaker, Professor Ron Harris from Brigham Young University, United States of America, Professor Timotheus Pasang from Oregon Institute of Technology, United States of America, Professor Toshifumi Igarashi from Hokkaido University, Japan, Dr. Carlos Prastyadi from UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Indonesia, Dr. Carlito Tabelin from the University of the New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, Dr. Umar Faruk Ugurlu from Istanbul University, Cerrahpaşa, Turkey. Who I respect the moderators and participants, we welcome and thank all who have taken the time and willing to attend to the 4th International Conference on Earth Science, Mineral and Energy, Icemine 2021, in Faculty of Mineral Technology, Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta, Indonesia, October 28, 2021. We do here a poem of gratitude and appreciation for the scientists who share research results and findings at this annual event. As we already know, we keep reading since science papers are as our references. We get a little better at compiling and writing scientific papers, and we do read research papers from others. The more we can see the possibility of writing works too, this is not the only from the two-dimensional or three-dimensional perspective, but there are many differences in research that we can do. As evidence in this Icemine event, we can see a collection of published research variation. There are still many researchers who have not been able to present their work in this meeting. I sincerely appreciate all the committee, volunteers, and sponsors who have been to contribute to the success of this event. This year's conference implement virtual considering our public environment condition in this COVID-19 pandemic period. We hope that our presenters will get immersed virtual experience by actively participating each session we provide. Thank you and welcome to Icemine 2021. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heri Rizwandi. Next opening speech from Rector of UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Profesor Dr. Muhammad Irhas Effendi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to Yogyakarta. Welcome to UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. Welcome to the 4th Icemine 2021. In this special occasion, first of all, I would like to thank to the committee and the participants who make this event happen during this pandemic. The term for the 4th Icemine is Stay Safe with Geoscience Challenges in Mineral and Energy Exploration, Extraction, Conservation to improve economic growth. I hope this conference might bring us to the new perspective of earth science discipline where the safety and health must be prioritized above all, but the economic growth shall be achieved optimally. At the first time, I know the Faculty of Mineral Technology would like to conduct this conference. I personally believe this conference will make a special combination knowledge from geology, petroleum, mining, environmental, and even metallurgy, where the very upstream business all the way down to the downstream business and even the supportive aspect are still being regarded. This conference is very unique. The mining discipline, for example, would be able to work together with geology, geophysics, environmental, and metallurgy disciplines simultaneously. Or on the other hand, the petroleum can work together with geology and environmental expertise. In this area, we cannot see a knowledge only based on that discipline or academic department or even country, but we need to see it beyond this border. Dear all participants, similar to Icemine 2020, this conference is also held virtually regarding to the current pandemic restriction and condition. Thus, some measures are fortunately must be done. Nevertheless, this event is good thing to share our research, ideas, and hopefully might expand our networking as well. Additionally, many scientists and the invited speakers around the world gather together in this event. Stay safe with geoscience and challenges the mineral and energy exploration, exploitation, and extraction to improve economic growth. The honorable keynote invited speakers are Professor Harris from Brigham Young University, USA, Professor Pasang from Oregon Institute of Technology, USA, Dr. Prastiati from UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Indonesia, Professor Igarashi from Hokkaido University, Japan, Dr. Kathleen from University of New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, and Dr. Ukurlu from Istanbul University, Karaspasa, Turkey. And just for information, I just heard that the fourth Icemine 2021 consists of more than 100 presenters and speakers from some countries and universities, such as Indonesia, Philippines, USA, Australia, Japan, and Turkey. It is a remarkable achievement to make this happen. Thus, hopefully, this conference not only be able place for presenting our research, but also can be able to increase our collaboration and enhance our knowledge and motivates us to work smarter and more efficient. That's all what I can say. And once again, thank you to all committees and participants. I happy declare that Icemine 2021 webinar event is open. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Muhammad Irhas Effendi, for your very delightful welcoming speech.
Now, this is the time for us to entire presentation from the keynote speakers in the first session. Professor Ron E. Harris, Professor Timotius Pasang, Dr. Carolus Prasetyadi. The session will be moderated by Dr. Jatmika Setiawan. Dr. Jatmika Setiawan devoting himself to be scientist and lecturer. He has devoted himself to being a lecturer since 1993 in Geological Engineering Faculty of Mineral Technology UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. He has a PhD degree from Universitas Kebangsaan Malaysia in the field of structural geology and tectonics. Professional member of Indonesian Geological Expert Association, Indonesian Petroleum Expert Association, Geology Society of Malaysia, and etc. He is currently engaging researcher regarding engineering geology, tectonics, and geoheritage. Dr. Jatmika Setiawan, how are you today?
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Jatmika. Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Jatmika Setiawan also lead discussion for Q&A session after the keynote presentation. Please welcome Dr. Jatmika Setiawan.
Session, the keynote speakers. There are three keynote speakers. First is Professor Ron A. from Brigham Young University, BYU, USA. And the second speakers, Professor Timotius Pasang from Oregon Institute of Technology, USA. And the third keynote speaker as Associate Professor Dr. C. Prasetyadi from Geology Department, UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. Welcome, Professor Ron Harris, Professor Timotius, and Associate Professor Dr. C. Prasetyadi. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have followed this session from 8:30 up to 10:30. up to 10 o'clock. The first keynote speaker is Professor Dr. Ron A. Harris from BYU, USA. Thank you, Professor Harris. Hello, how are you, Professor?
Saya baik sekali.
Alhamdulillah sudah jumpa beberapa kali dan sudah pandai berbahasa Inggris, Profesor Haris. Selamat pagi dan sehat selalu. Ya,
Ya,
Oke.
selamat malam dari
Selamat
Amerika.
Amerika. Selamat malam. Thank you so much, Professor. Ya, Oke, all participant. Ya, this first session, keynote speaker from Professor Dr. A. Harris from BYU University. Professor Ron Harris is a long time collaborated with UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, specialist with geology department, and the last collaborated is the last collaborated are paleo tsunami in along of the south beach or south island of Indonesia, and specialist south of Java Sea, yeah, with associate professor Dr. C. Prastyadi. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Professor Harris. And the first, I will be read CV of Professor Harris. Professor A. Harris, born 29 June 1957 in Eugene, Oregon, USA. Contact person, please contact department, and PhD in University College London, England, May 1989. MSc in Geophysical Institute, University of Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska, 1985, and PhD, University of Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, June 1982 in geology. Professional experience, all of geology, tectonic, and structural, and paleo tsunami. Yeah, and there are 15 papers. If I read all, very long time. Okay, the first keynote speaker, Professor A. Ron Harris, Professor Timotheus Pasang, and Associate Professor Dr. C. Prastyadi. I think the panel session, yeah. I think this session is a panel session. Keynote speaker 1, keynote speaker 2nd, and third keynote speaker continue presentation about 20 up to 25 minutes, and then we have left 15 up to 30 minutes to question and answer. And the first keynote speaker, please, Professor Dr. A. Ron Harris. Please, time for yours, and please, we follow the presentation of Professor Ron Harris. Okay, Professor, please, time for yours.
You need to enable me to share my screen.
Yeah. Okay.
So the host needs to enable.
Okay. Please, Dr. Heri Reswandi or Mas Jody, dibuatkan co-host Profesor Ron Harris. Hello.
Yeah, it says that I can't share my screen because you need to enable the screen to be shared.
Yeah, yeah. Halo Mas Heri. Mas Jody.
We are going to process the multiple screen. Please wait for the
Okay, I've got
technical
it now.
update. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you, Professor. And please
Thank you.
continue your presentation.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. I have a fond feeling about UPN veteran Jogja. Saya tahu banyak mahasiswa dan colleague and friends and always welcome me and have been a key collaborator for my research. I could not have done this without the help, especially of Carolus Prasadyati and many others in your department. So thank you. These are the institutions that I also collaborate with besides UPN. The premise of our research has always been that if we can identify what the risks are, if we can assess the risk in a place like Indonesia, where you have many earthquakes and tsunamis and volcanic eruptions and landslides and floods and tsunamis and so on, that if we could just do that, we would save lives. You can see here that we have historical accounts. We look at the geological record. We actually even listen to the earth directly by conducting VS30 measurements. We survey places where there's tsunami deposits in the past. We also do geophysical imaging and so on, all of these to try to determine who's most at risk. However, there's much more we obviously need to do because we still have many losses due to natural hazards. Indonesia is unique, though, because Indonesia has at least 2 major earthquakes every year. That means earthquakes greater than magnitude 7, and 1 tsunami every 4 years over the past 400 years. And this whole idea of trying to assess risk is based on the concept of menguci and bergeser, meaning that we have stick and then slip, stick and then slip. Between slip events, many people forget about the last slip event. So we have earthquakes that usually occur over time periods of hundreds to thousands of years. And so each fault plane, each active fault can sometimes produce an earthquake only every few centuries, which means several generations of people will come and go without an earthquake. The problem with that is that we forget. Lupa, banyak. So when we've done research looking at this, it shows that since the turn of the century, you can see that the earthquake rate, Sumatra has more only because it has a longer trench than Java does and is a larger island. But you can see that they track one another very well. And there's times when you have when you have lots of activity, and then there's times where you have very little activity, and then another period of time of high activity and low activity. And right now, we're on an upswing. We're expecting each one of these times of tiror, right, usually lasts about 20 to 30 years. This one right here started in 1970 and has lasted until 2004. So that's 34 years. Unfortunately, most of us were born during this time. and or a little bit earlier, and so we've been living during a time of very low seismic activity in Sumatra and Java. The 2004 event in Sumatra and events in Java have changed that. So we're now living in a different world where earthquakes are so much more common and having much more of a negative effect. So there's Tidor, Bangun, Tidor, and then Bangun again, Sekarang. So if you look at earthquakes in the past, you can see that there have been several during the 19th century that are huge, but there are large gaps in places where we have no records of earthquakes, even though the plate movement is still just as fast in other places that have large earthquakes. So we were able to identify two major seismic gaps, one off the north coast of Sumatra and one that actually reaches from southern part of Sumatra all the way to the island of Timor. And essentially what this is showing is that you have the increase in stress until you reach a threshold and then you get an earthquake. Increase in stress and then you get an earthquake. And this rate right here of increase in stress is associated with the plate velocity, which in this region is about 5 to 7 centimeters city uptown. And unfortunately, though, this is an idealized concept. We call this the recurrence interval, but it's highly susceptible to earthquakes that are happening near. For example, the earthquake that happened right here in 2004 caused this part of the Sumatra subduction zone to rupture within a few months of this earthquake through a process we call stress contagion. So not only is COVID-19 contagious, but also earthquakes in Indonesia can have a domino effect. We also want to bring your attention to other seismic gaps that exist throughout in Indonesia. In fact, Indonesia is surrounded by seismic gaps. The way we determine what size of an earthquake will happen, for example, on the Java Trench here, we know the convergence rate is 7 centimeters a year, and it's been 500 years since the last major earthquake has happened on the Java Trench. We know that from geological data. And so that equals 7 times 5, that equals 35 meters of potential slip along this fault. And the way you determine magnitude is by the length and width of the rupture zone times the slip. And so this could produce, when this ruptures, it will at least be a magnitude 9 if all of the strain that has accumulated, the 35 meters, is released at once. Going over here from Timor up to Tanimbar, this section has again been same time it ruptured about 500 years ago, and it's got 15 meters of strain because its convergence rate is much lower. In the Saram Trough, we have 5 centimeters a year, and it's been 400 years since the last major event, which is 20 meters, producing 8.8, and so on. Here's Palu event here, which is tiny compared to the size of these megathrust earthquakes. So these faults are what we call loaded, kind of like a bomb. And so we have been concerned about trying to assess these risks. We call that listening to the earth through looking at historical records, geological records, and seismic gaps and forecasting who's next. And we thought that would equal saving lives. But we were very mistaken because there's a huge communication gap between those who are assessing the risk and those who are actually working to reduce the risk. Usually the assessment of risk involves the hard sciences and the reduction of risk involves the soft ones. And only if these two different approaches are integrated will we actually make any progress in saving lives. So The risk reduction part of this involves community involvement in community-led plans, questionnaire surveys to try to understand what those most at risk understand, social media in a way of making effective communication, and practicing and evaluating our risk reduction strategies and perfecting them. These approaches involve listening to the people, not just listening to the earth, but listening to the people and helping the people listen to the earth. So let's start with community-led plans. For example, one of the places I've been working is in Ambon. And one year when I went there, Julian Fritha, who's this woman here, who works for the BBBD there, had brought together people from the community, which involved the BBBD, the Red Cross, the regional coordinator of defense, and the head of the BBBT, Farida, and the head and the person from the BMKG. So we had a team. Myself and Kustroro were in charge of listening to the earth. The Red Cross and Julian were in charge of listening to people, and the head of the BPBT and the coordinator of defense were in charge of helping the people listen to the earth. So this is an example of starting at the bottom, starting at the community level and working our way upward. Not that the other efforts working from the top down are not needed, but it needs to come from both directions. And listening is the important key. Listening to the earth, listening to the people, and helping the people listen to the earth. For example, here's the gap that exists between myself and my students and these local members of the community. We have to close that gap in order to make progress in this area. And so not only do we assess the risk, we communicate the risk and we reduce the risk by implementing risk reduction strategies. So for example, listening to the people, we've done hundreds of seminars at schools and at community organizations and government offices and mosques and churches and so on, which involve thousands of people where we first ask what they know, and then we try to provide simple solutions for their concerns. One of the most important projects that we've been involved in was started by a former student from the geology department at UPN and some of his colleagues, which is called ARC, which is Art for Resilient Communities. In this approach, very hands-on approach, communities will make a diorama or a model of their community that shows where everybody lives, shows the natural hazards, and they also take photographs of the hazards and also the vulnerabilities and also the assets that that community has. And they use this as a way of bringing shareholders together from various different aspects of the community, making sure that everybody knows what's going on. This is an example. When these are finished, there's a large party where everybody in the community comes out. And you can see here that the children are drawn. The children are drawn to these models, and they're learning the various aspects of how to build resilience and response efficacy for the future. Another untapped giant for disaster mitigation are Pramuka. And the Pramuka, their motto is Siap dan Waspada, readiness and awareness. And it used to be against the Dutch invaders, but now who are they ready and aware against? It's the natural hazards that are afflicting the people of Indonesia and will continue to become worse and worse for at least the next 20 or 30 years. These women here in Pramuka need to be trained. What they're doing is they're looking at a map of their island and trying to determine what the hazards are. They need to be like Christina, whatever, I can't remember the rest of her name, Christina Tiahahu, who was a great young warrior. And also the young men. In Eastern Indonesia, they celebrate, I can't remember his name, I should have it there. But these need to be the—
Patimura.
Yeah, Patimura. Patimura. The university is named after him. These young Pramuka scouts looking at a map here need to be the new Patimura. And their weapons need to be scientific instruments, not parangs. Okay, so let's talk about questionnaire surveys. We have distributed thousands of questionnaire surveys throughout Java, Bali, Lombok, Sumba, Timor, Ambon, and other places to try to assess what people know and are ready for. And these are some of the results. When we asked, when do you evacuate? Most people want an alert or an order from authorities to evacuate. And with most of these rapid onset hazards, that's not going to work. For example, people in Sumatra in 2004 had no idea that there was potentially a tsunami coming after the ground shaking stopped. And if we could have started a campaign in Banda Aceh before that tsunami, just to let them know that the earthquake is the warning. You don't wait around for word from the government because there's not enough time. And the earthquake itself is the natural warning that a tsunami is likely approaching. Think of how many thousands of people would have been saved with just that one bit of knowledge. Tens of thousands of people would have been saved. Another one is that the people want to be alerted with a siren, okay? And sirens are not a possibility because most of them are in disrepair. Almost every city I've ever been to in Indonesia that has a siren for whatever reason, I ask if it works. And they say, rusak. Yeah. And even if the siren does go off, most people don't know what to do. So this shows that there needs to be some basic education and a transformation of the current disaster mitigation approach to a different one that empowers the people so that they have a response efficacy. They know exactly what to do. They have confidence in how they can see the natural signs and respond effectively. So communicating risk is also a very important thing. For example, what we've done is we have produced numerical models of potential tsunamis all along the coast of Java and the Lesser Sunda Islands. These models were able to tell us how much the wave would inundate, how many people live in the inundation zone. For example, these numbers show the number of people in the inundation zone, and this blue graph shows how high the tsunami model says the tsunami will be in some of these places, which is about 20 meters high, right? And some of these coastal plains are very low elevation and will be inundated deeply. This is one of the models for Bali. Here's the Denpasar airport right here. And this is the tourist area of Bali. These are time series showing that the earthquake is right here. This is 1 hour, that most of these tsunamis will arrive within 20 to 30 minutes of the earthquake shaking. So you can see the first waves coming right here and inundating the whole peninsula here. What are people going to do that live here? Which way are they going to go to get out of the way? These are things that need to be decided in advance of the disaster. Disasters, mostly, we call them natural ones, but they're really human disasters because of lack of preparedness. This is going to happen sometime. It's not a question of if it's going to happen. It's only a question of when. And we already have enough strain accumulated on the subduction zone south of this to produce this event. Another thing is for communities to determine evacuation routes and safe evacuation points, like this map for Wayangapu Sumba. Each one of those stars is a place that's above 20 meters elevation that people can go to. And you also need to have a simplified way of tying the natural things that are going on with response efficacy. For example, we have come up with a 20-20-20 principle for helping people to survive a tsunami. It requires them to be aware of when they have an earthquake and to count Satu, Dua, Tiga, Empat, Lima, Inam, Tujuh, Delapan, Sembilan, Sepuluh, and so on. If it doesn't last for more than 20 seconds, it's not likely going to produce a tsunami. But if it lasts for more than 20 seconds, even if the shaking is hardly perceptible, it's the length of time it shakes, not the intensity. And if it's more than 20 seconds, it's likely a tsunami could be following the earthquake. And so, as I showed in those time series graphs, most of the tsunamis from the Java Trench will arrive at the coastlines, the southern coastlines of the islands, within 20 minutes. And so you have 20 minutes to evacuate. And usually the earthquake shaking will last for a megathrust event 5 minutes or so, which is going to make it hard to evacuate immediately. But as soon as the shaking gets to the point where you can move, you got to move away from the coast. Where do you go? You go to 20 meters. Okay, and the last thing is practices. It's not good enough just to have the 20-20 principle. You have to practice and practice and practice and find where there are problems with the evacuation routes. We have many cities where we've looked at the evacuation routes on the south coast of Java, and there's places where it takes longer than 20 minutes for people to get from the coast to 20 meters elevation. And these things need to be discussed. And there needs to be plans made as to what to do about it before the tsunami comes. For example, all over Indonesia, you'll see these tsunami signs like these here, pointing in the direction of evacuation and telling you how far to go. But it doesn't say anything about how you can know a tsunami is coming. So what needs to happen is that we need to have 20-20-20 signs underneath these signs. The 20-20-20 actually communicates how you can know for yourself if there's a tsunami approaching, how long you have to take that evacuation route, and how high that evacuation route needs to go. And so once those signs get put on, we need to have drills like this one that we had in Pelabuhan, Rahu. And now the 20-20-20 principle has been adopted by local and national disaster mitigation agencies. And in some places, like in Pacitan, they have parades, 20-20-20 parades, where people from the BPPD and others simulate a tsunami by riding a tsunami decorated bike through the community. Another thing is to try to reduce the losses from collapse of buildings. And there have been many